The first time I saw Daniel, he was standing outside the tall glass doors of the company where I worked. He wasn't dressed in an expensive suit like the executives who rushed past him, nor was he carrying files or laptops. He wore a simple, neat black uniform, his posture straight, his eyes steady. A security officer, a bodyguard, a man who blended into the background, yet somehow commanded attention without saying a word. At that time, I was just another employee climbing the endless ladder of corporate life. Long hours, endless deadlines, and the pressure to prove myself left me drained most days. But something about Daniel struck me. Maybe it was the way he held himself, alert, strong, as though he carried an invisible shield. He wasn't just guarding a building, he was guarding people. I didn't know then that one day he would guard me with his own life. It began simply. One evening, as I walked out of the office late, balancing files and my bag, the strap of my heel broke. I stumbled, nearly dropping everything. Daniel stepped forward without hesitation. "Careful," he said, his voice calm, steady. He picked up the folder I dropped and handed it back to me. "Thank you," I murmured, embarrassed. He gave a small nod, nothing more. But that night, for reasons I couldn't explain, I thought about him long after I got home. Over the next few weeks, I began noticing him more. He was always there, morning, evening, rain or shine. Sometimes he'd hold the door for me, sometimes he'd quietly greet me with a polite nod. He never crossed the line between professional and personal. Yet, in his silence, there was a kind of strength I couldn't ignore. One evening, the skies opened, and a heavy rain poured down just as I was leaving work. I hadn't brought an umbrella. As I stood hesitating at the door, Daniel appeared beside me, holding out his own umbrella. "Here," he said, "you'll get soaked." "What about you?" I asked. "I'll manage." He walked me to the bus stop, making sure I stayed dry, though his own shoulders were drenched by the end of it. Before leaving, he gave me a rare smile. It was small but warm enough to leave an impression. That was the beginning. Slowly, in small ways, we started talking. Not about work, not about personal secrets, but about ordinary things. The weather, the city traffic, the taste of coffee from the cafe nearby. Every word, every glance felt like it meant more than what it seemed. And then, one day, everything changed. It was late. Too late. I had stayed back at the office, finishing a presentation, until the streets outside were nearly empty. When I finally packed up and left, the usual noise of the city had quieted into unsettling silence. Daniel was there, as always. "You're late," he remarked, his tone more concerned than casual. "I lost track of time," I admitted, just glad to be heading home now. He walked beside me toward the parking lot, but before I could unlock my car, a shadow emerged from behind one of the vehicles, then another. Two men stepped out, their faces hidden under hoodies. "Hand over your bag," one of them demanded. My heart froze, my legs trembled. Before I could even react, Daniel stepped in front of me, his stance firm, shielding me completely. "Leave," he said to them, his voice deep, commanding. The men hesitated, but one of them pulled out a knife. I gasped. Daniel didn't move back. He stood his ground like an immovable wall. "You don't want to do this," he warned. The taller man lunged forward, and in that split second, Daniel shoved me back, out of reach. What followed was a blur of motion, Daniel blocking, deflecting, using nothing but his training and raw strength to keep them away from me. He didn't fight to win. He fought to protect. At one point, the blade grazed his arm, but he didn't flinch. Not once did he let them near me. Finally, after what felt like forever, the men ran off into the night, defeated by his resolve. I rushed to him, my voice trembling. "You're hurt." "It's nothing," he said, brushing it off, though the blood on his sleeve said otherwise. But to me, it was everything. After that night, something shifted between us. I couldn't look at him the same way. He hadn't just been a quiet presence anymore. He had been my shield, my protector. The company insisted on giving him time off for recovery. But Daniel refused. "I have a job to do," he said simply. I visited him with bandages and insisted on helping. At first he resisted, uncomfortable with the idea of anyone fussing over him, but eventually he let me sit with him, let me wrap his wound, let me see the man behind the uniform. And slowly, in those quiet moments, walls broke down. He told me about his past, how he had grown up in a tough neighborhood, how he had once dreamed of being a soldier, but life had taken him a different way. He had lost people he cared about, which was why protecting others became his mission. "You matter." "You matter," he told me once, his eyes steady on mine. "Every life does. But that night, it wasn't just duty. I couldn't let anything happen to you." His words echoed in my heart long after. Weeks passed. What began as quiet conversations turned into laughter, into moments of comfort I never expected to find. With Daniel, I felt safe, not just physically, but emotionally. He never made grand gestures, never showered me with fancy words, but in his presence, I found something deeper: trust. And that trust slowly grew into love. Not the dramatic, fiery kind of love often told in stories, but a steady flame, a love born out of respect, sacrifice, and unspoken understanding. One evening, as we stood by the gates of the office, I looked at him and realized this was the man who had stood between me and danger. But more than that, he stood beside me in life. I didn't need to say it out loud. The way he looked back at me said he understood. Months later, another moment of danger arrived. Not physical this time, but personal. My company faced cutbacks, and rumors spread that employees would be let go. Fear rippled through the office. One night I broke down, overwhelmed by the uncertainty. Daniel found me sitting alone, tears in my eyes. Without hesitation, he sat beside me. "You'll be fine," he said. "How can you be so sure?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Because you're stronger than you think, and because I'll be here, no matter what happens." Those words, spoken with absolute certainty, meant more to me than any promise of security the company could offer. In that moment, I realized love isn't just found in romance or grand confessions. It's found in loyalty, in sacrifice, in the quiet assurance that someone will always stand by you, between you and danger, between you and despair. Time moved forward. Life didn't magically become perfect. There were struggles, challenges, and days when the weight of the world felt too heavy. But through it all, Daniel remained my anchor. He had once been the man in the background, the silent bodyguard. But to me, he became everything. He stood between me and danger that night in the parking lot, and every day after, he stood beside me, with love, with strength, with unwavering faith. In the end, it wasn't just about him protecting me. It was about us protecting each other. And that, I realized, was the truest form of love.